All right, we're live. This is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win, and I'm joined by some very special guests tonight. First up, we have Miss G, Georgette Truin. We have Cassandra. Miss Cassandra, how are you?
I'm good.
He always asks you, how are you? And GT, unbelievable. He's doing fabulous. Cassandra's doing fabulous.
Fabulous. Thanks for asking.
And I see we have Mr. Brian. Is it Bridewell?
Correct.
How are you, sir?
I'm okay.
Good. So you're on with us tonight. You must have some type of connection to CPS somewhere in the United States. Is that accurate?
Yeah, Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. So what's going on with CPS in Austin, Texas?
Same as everywhere else, pretty much. I've been in case for 4 years now, and now they've the placement agency, the foster agency, is actually intervening in my case, not just the foster herself and her lawyer. They have a team of lawyers, and they have filed a writ of mandamus. Mandamus. There you go. A writ of mandamus against the judge, of course. No, it wasn't even against me, but it's completely backtracked my visitation. I'm only getting 2 hours right now, supervised at the office, which is insane. And then because of an accusation that happened in the fall, so they backtracked it to what was happening last fall. And I was supposed to be having my children right now. The judge had signed an order of basically a monitored return, but it wasn't called that. But it was basically, that's what it was. It was a step up, and I should have them full time. And we're already gone to court now. But this writ has been stuck in the court since spring.
Well, has there been a temporary order that says your children can't be returned pending the writ of mandamus?
Yeah, it's what it's about is because visitation they can't change visitation, so they can't give me my kids. Nothing that has to do with me. The only people that have any power right now are the advocates. And the advocates, that's CASA, the ad litem, and CPS, if they have a consensus too, it's not just the majority rules, apparently. They have to all agree I could get my visitations expanded, which they were expanded by them in January under the same order that's in effect right now. But then when this writ went through, all of a sudden they're like, no, CASA's never been my friend since day one.
Have you seen the actual order or temporary order that's been issued in the writ?
Oh, yes, sir. My lawyer CCs me on everything.
Is your lawyer court appointed or private?
He's a private, but he's court appointed. Yes. I'm really lucky that I got the lawyer that I have. He tries really hard. He's a pit bull in court. Of course, in the nature of it all, it's not like he gets enough money to have a big, a bunch of paralegals and stuff, So I have to do a lot of my own research as well. And I have a friend that also helps me research stuff.
Do you think it's possible that you contact your lawyer tomorrow and ask him if he'd like to be a guest on our show?
Yeah, I could ask him that for sure.
Okay.
He's the one that he kind of suggested that I should maybe start taking my case public because where it's sitting, it's just sitting in this court. And there's a three judge panel, and one of them is from the most corrupt county in Texas. And this particular judge denied DNA evidence in a murder trial. I mean, so there you go. That's what I'm dealing with here in Texas right now. And then the team of lawyers that the agency has. One of them's an ex-Supreme Court judge. I'm not supposed to say names, so I won't. But if I said it, you'd be like, "Whoa, that sounds very Mason." But that's partly what I'm thinking is going on here. I think there's something uber political, like the foster's father or something. Somebody's connected to somebody somehow, because my lawyer says this writ in itself would be like $40,000 to do all the manpower, all the, and the placement agency just got in my case just around a year ago, and no one has ever seen anything like this. Caseworker, the supervisor, has been in it for 20 years. My lawyer, 14 years. The ad litem or the parenting coach has been doing it for 10 more than 10 years. Nobody has ever seen the placement agency come in and do this, what they're doing in my case.
Would it be appropriate? Ask your attorney if we could get a copy of the writ. I'd like to see it.
Okay. Yeah.
So ask him if it would be appropriate for us to see that writ.
Okay, I will. That's talk to him tomorrow. Yeah, but yeah, this is it's gone. I mean, the things that have been said and done in my case are insane. Everything from dirty feet, the foster complaining that their feet were dirty, to feeding them goat milk, to whether or not their mother was supposed to breastfeed them or not because she was positive for THC, all these things. And their mother, she took her own life 2 years ago. So it's just me, and the single fathers are at a disadvantage in the system for sure. But,
so did you listen to our show yesterday?
I listened to most of it.
Okay, so look, this is what I want you to do, because this is the type of case that's prime for these two things. Number one, you have to go to the website DHHS, Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C., and you have to make an official complaint.
Oh, yeah, I did hear you saying that too. Yeah.
And then I want you to go to the Department of Justice in your area, the United States Department of Justice, and make a complaint as well. And before you do this, it's of course advisable that you consult with your attorney. Sounds like your attorney's on the ball pretty much. And, make sure that this won't harm your case in any way. I can't think of any way that it would, but you never know. So check with your attorney. Okay?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Brian. Were there any specific questions you wanted to ask me with respect to CPS strategies and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, this writ thing is a biggest thing right now in my case. It's what's keeps holding everything back.
Right. I haven't seen the writ, so I really can't comment on it. But let me tell you something that I was involved with in maybe 20 years ago. Foster parents sign a contract with the state, at least in California, that they will do everything possible to help you reunite with your children. Okay? And in a case, almost 20 years ago, a foster family did exactly what the foster family in your case is trying to do. Not file a writ, but basically keep your children away from you. Okay? Because they wanted to keep the children. Kids that are placed with foster parents can be quite the meal ticket.
Right.
Especially if the children have been designated any type of special needs. way back when, and I don't really do this anymore, but way back when, I used to represent foster parents. I used to represent them in cases where, the state was trying to take their foster license away because of something, screw up they had done, like abuse the child. I represented a foster parent that caused the death of a child. Caused the death of a child. And I've represented them in cases in the juvenile court where they're trying to keep your children away from you.
Right.
But they sign, at least in California, and I can't imagine it's not the same for most states because it's all under the same federal regulations. They sign a contract saying that they're going to help or do everything to place the kids back with you, right? Why
Right.
send the kids to someone that wants to steal your kids while you're trying to reunify? That doesn't make sense.
Was
Doesn't even make common sense. So I know this lawyer. He's not with us anymore. He's deceased. Who would on occasion sue a foster parent for doing something like that?
right.
Because it was basically
Hold
violating
on.
what happened to Brian.
His lights go out, or they're motion detected.
So you might want to talk to your attorney there in Texas
Right.
and ask him. It's a him, right? Not a her.
It's him. Yes.
Yeah. Ask him. What does he think of that idea? Now, I've talked to a lot of attorneys about that over the years, and most attorneys will say, that's really aggressive. Maybe we shouldn't do that. And there's a lot of reasons to do it, a lot of reasons not to do it. And that's why I say you got to talk with your attorney. But sometimes that type of thing could put pressure on a foster parent, to give you your kids back and quit trying to, basically take your kids away from you. What happens naturally, and this is just something biologic. If you give me a kid to take care of, and I take care of that kid for the next 6 months, 12 months, guess what? I'm going to become attached to that kid.
Of course.
Physically, socially, psychologically, in every way. I mean, that's just how human beings are built. So when we think we're going to give these kids to foster parents and they're not going to want to keep them, that kind of is a wrong assumption. And where I see it a lot? Foster parents report things that may not be true against parents.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Brian came to the visit. He was intoxicated.
Or he was threatening.
Right. He threatened me. Or the kid didn't want to see Brian and kept running away from Brian. Mm-hmm. Or the kid cried during the visit. Or the kid cried after the visit. The cried after the visit is not a really good one because you could always argue, well, she cried after the visit because she wants to see me. She didn't want me to be separated.
Or nightmares.
Right.
I got crying out at night. No.
So, there is literally a playlist of arguments that they use to keep you separated from your kid.
Yeah.
Now, I think, this is just me speculating, a lot of that stuff is exaggerated. I think some of the stuff isn't even true.
Right.
When you're writing a report to the judge, when you're the social worker, and you have an agenda, okay, you want to do what you think is best for the child, it tends to come across in your reports. You go from being neutral and objective to be an advocate, sometimes undercover advocate, to keep the child away from you, away from the parent. The orphanage system that we used to have in this country was thrown out because there were so many problems with it.
Right.
The big problem is There's so many problems with foster care. And what are we going to do about that?
Right.
Right? Why
Right.
don't we just leave these kids with their parents and
Right.
offer the parents all types of services to keep the kid, at home?
Then we wouldn't
Now,
have all these adoption babies.
yeah, but that's a whole nother story.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you something. When I first started doing juvenile dependency, I became kind of well known, and I got invited to do a training for lawyers up in Monterey. Every year, there's a big training for juvenile dependency attorneys and juvenile delinquency attorneys in Monterey. Now, I don't know what's happened since COVID, but when I went up there and I talked about drug cases that were prevalent, if you were using drugs or the baby was born drug exposed or whatever, they took your kids for sure in LA County.
Right.
I will tell you something. Half of the people in that conference came up to me and explained to me that they didn't do that in their county, that in their county, they spent money to try to keep the children with the family. And if that meant going to see mom and the kids every day or having this teacher check on the kids at school to make sure that they were didn't come to school dirty and that they were being well taken care of apparently at home, that's what they would do. And the interesting thing was a lot of these guys and gals told me that system was far cheaper,
Of course.
far better for the kid, and far better for the parent.
Of
You know,
course.
as a kid, you take a kid out of a home and send him off to a stranger. That's a traumatic thing. I mean, we all think, oh, the kid's going to get over it. I don't think that's true.
Even the abused kid is traumatic.
Right. So I digress. But anyway, that was what I'll call the Northern California model.
Right.
Everybody now in California is on the LA County model. And the LA County model is the model where the counties make millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
Now, it's interesting. You think the focus is on your children and doing what's best for children, at least from the social worker's point of view.
Right.
That's what you think. That's
Right.
what you expect. In
Right.
my experience, as a lawyer doing these types of cases over 30 years, in general, I would say that's not the case with CPS. And here's the problem. CPS writes the reports and they give them to the judge. And that's a lot of times that's the only evidence the judge has. Because
Right.
you and your attorney haven't done anything. You haven't called any witnesses. You haven't subpoenaed any documents. You don't get on the stand to testify. So as far as the judge is concerned, judge is making the right decision. The judges don't have a responsibility to go out and investigate themselves. They can't.
Right. I do a pretty good job keeping them in check because I record I body cam every visitation, every interaction. I wasn't in the beginning, and I wish I had, but I have been. As soon as they started lying in court, I was like, maybe they asked me that once. They said, "Mr. Bravo, how long have you been recording everything?" I said, "Ever since the caseworker," and I said her name, started lying in court. And they didn't ask me any more questions about that. But I had to get an expert witness already.
There's a private investigator that we sometimes recommend. He's licensed private investigator. So maybe you can find someone doing this in your area.
Right.
What happened was kids would go on visits with their parents somewhere in a public place. And inevitably, the social worker would say something that happened during that visit that wasn't true. So what some parents started doing, I didn't think of this, but I think it's a great idea, is having a private investigator in the area in the public space, watching and listening, so that they can come into court and say, no, that didn't happen at all. I was there. I saw the whole visit. It's a shame that people have to stoop to that type of thing to protect their rights as a parent. But that's what it's come to.
People in my housing have caught people spying on me and my kids already. Actually, matter of fact, I had a monitor return a year ago, and I made a stupid mistake. I left the kids for a couple minutes while they're napping, and the caseworker showed up right then. Like, they were watching me. I know it. They were watching me. I screwed up, and they took my kids right back from me, and also tried to blame some bruises because I couldn't tell them exactly where their bruises happened, and I mean how and when. And I'm like, I don't know. One of the times they fell. I mean, it's not like bruises just appear instantly, but I've got like hundreds and hundreds of pictures of bruises and contusions happen under foster care. They don't care.
Right.
My son said he gets spanked. He told it to the caseworker. It was reported. Nothing came of it. They always cover for the foster. Also, I was going to tell you, in Texas, they got a law. The law says if they're in foster care for 12 months, that the foster has the right to intervene. And so so she's legally able to have her lawyer there, and her lawyer is pain, but she's nowhere near as bad as the foster agency's lawyers are. This woman slanders me on the daily.
Brian, you know why the foster parents have that right in Texas? Because foster parents have a very strong national and state by state political action arm, or
Right.
PAC, Political Action Committee. And they go to your state capital, they go to Congress, and they lobby for different laws.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but foster care is a huge, huge business.
Oh yeah, I've thought about it. There's plenty of people do it just for the money. That's unfortunate.
Right. That's true.
And in Texas, we've been having, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but been a lot on the news lately. We had a whole, they had a home that, one of those, the boarding homes or whatever you call them, right? It was for kids that were sex trafficked, and they were sex trafficking them right down the road from here in Austin. I mean, literally a hop, skip, and a jump from Austin. It's called Bastrop. And Austin, but Texas has passed a new law that says they have to show imminent danger now to remove a child. So under the new law, they wouldn't have removed my children. I was also told that if I hadn't been in Bexar County, which was San Antonio, is where my boy was born. He was born 5 weeks early, and his mother was positive for THC, and so was he. His cecum. They wouldn't let her breastfeed because of it. It was so insane. But meanwhile, mothers are on Demerol breastfeeding. My son was him and one other baby were the most active babies in the NICU. I heard a video when he's day old and he's reaching in the air and concentration on his furrow, and he was just so interactive as a preemie. It was unbelievable. But all the other babies except one little girl were all like lumps in a sack, potato in a sack, I'd say. And I am positive it's because their mothers were all on legal opiates. Their mother did
Hey, Brian.
birth both times.
Brian, I just posted something to all the pages that we're linked to tonight, and it says if you were a prior foster child that was abused in a foster home, please call me at 888-888-6582.
Right.
The abuse to foster children is something that occurs in the foster home or the group home, is something
Right.
that we as a society and group of people that work in this field kind of ignore.
Right.
And let me tell you, there is I'm not going to mention this attorney's name, but the attorney is a very well-known, very qualified, highly qualified minor's attorney. And I was on a case where I represented the foster child and the child. Excuse me, but not the child and the family, because the child had been abused while in foster home. Now, this attorney told me, because we know each other. I've known her. We're not friends, but we've known each other for years, 20 years, 25 years, just doing these cases. This attorney told me to my face that she didn't believe in compensating foster children who had been abused in foster care.
That's insane. Heartless.
Yeah. I mean, I almost couldn't believe it, what I was hearing from her or from him.
Right.
Now, I want to tell you that there are some people in the system that believe that, or they feel that way. Now, everybody has their own experiences. Everybody has their own agendas. Everybody has their own, education about things. But just how some people like Biden and some people like Trump and some people liked Obama, right?
Right.
Everybody's across the board. I'm not going to tell you about my political affiliations, but
Right.
in the last election, basically, it was 50-50 for Biden and 50% almost for Trump. That's a lot of people with diametrically opposed viewpoints and beliefs.
Right.
So when I tell you things about the foster or the CPS system, there are people that believe the exact opposite of me and you, because they've never been through it.
Right.
I once had a client. I represented this gentleman, Caucasian, upper middle class, who got caught up in a CPS case. I represented him. And one time he told me something. He goes, Vince, I have to confess something to you. I go, what's that? He said, I always thought people that were accused of child abuse, of somehow, being involved in this juvenile dependency CPS system, I thought they were the scum of the earth because they must have done it. Social worker wouldn't have said it unless they did it. That's what he told me.
Right.
He said,
Right.
it wasn't until I got involved in this myself
Right.
that he says, I never would have believed that this could happen in my country, the United States of America.
Yep. Most of the people I talk to think that my case, they want to believe that my case is a minority, that it's an extreme minority, and that, and that most of the cases are justified. And I tell them up and down, and my friends believe me now that when I tell them, I'm like, look, I am not alone. Get on one of these groups. I'm on so many groups. I have to stop looking at the groups sometimes because I get so depressed. But because I cry for so many kids and their mothers and their fathers. But
look, I want to tell you a story. This happened in Northern California. The case is long over. The family moved from Northern California to another state in the South where they currently live. They were originally from there, but they currently live there. In the initial detention report, there wasn't enough evidence to take these kids away from the parents, except for one thing. And it was a statement by a then 11-year-old child that caused the judge to detain these children. Okay? We eventually got the children placed in the South with the grandparents to basically get them away from California.
right.
In some states, some places in the South, they're kind of, they look differently on these CPS cases. But anyway.
Especially in the country. A lot of times they're like.
So the social worker wrote in the report ABC. And I happen to have what they call a contested detention hearing. All right. You can have a contest or a trial, mini trial, on the initial time or the initial hearing when they take your kids away. Anyway, I cross-examined this social worker about this statement made by the 11-year-old. And, after you've been doing something for a long time, sometimes you get the feeling that the witness isn't telling you the truth.
Right.
And I left that day believing that this social worker had not testified accurately or truthfully. But without that statement, she loses and the parents win.
Right.
Flash forward about 7 or 8 years. Okay. The family, the parents still keep in contact with me. As a matter of fact, they watch my shows and sometimes they make comments because they've gone through this themselves.
Right.
Right. And the child is now like 18 or 19 years old. And one time I talked to her and I asked her, I said, hey, when the case first started, did you ever tell the social worker blah, blah, blah? She said, no, I never told the social worker that. I said, well, what did you tell the social worker? Not much. She just asked me how I was doing, how I was feeling. Was I getting enough food? Did my father ever touch me in my private parts? Standard social worker questions.
Right.
I said,
But
you
they're
never.
not supposed to ask that exact question, but
Right. So I said, you never told the social worker ABC? No, Mr. Davis, we never talked about it. I said, is it possible you could have talked about it and forgotten it? She said, no, I remember that conversation. They were taking me from my family and my siblings. I remember exactly what we talked about, it like it was last week.
Right.
So, do social workers ever not tell the truth? Yeah.
Oh, I've caught my caseworker multiple times. I've caught her changing her testimony in 2 different hearings. And thing is I can't even afford to get the minutes from the transcripts because it's $500 for one transcript.
Oh no, in California, I don't know what it is in Texas, but if you
Yeah.
can't afford the transcript, they'll give it to you for free. It's called a fee waiver. I'm sure they must have something like that in Texas.
I contacted the court reporters about it, and
No. You're asking the wrong person.
right.
You need to ask your lawyer.
I got all my other paperwork for free because I filed it and did.
Do you think the court reporter is going to tell you, "Hey, I don't want to make $500"?
Right. Oh, that's true.
You're asking the wrong person. Now,
right.
The court reporter may be telling you the truth. I don't know. But ask your attorney, hey, can I get a free transcript?
Right.
Transcripts are so important.
I know, because there are a lot of things in my transcript. I've dude, my report is so full of besides it's like 2,000 pages. My court records for this case is insanely amount of stuff, and so much is false or exaggerated that it's insane. The worst thing that's happened so far was last fall. The caseworkers said that my son, who was 3 at the time, told her that I stuck my finger in his anus. And it's insane. The kid doesn't know the difference between getting butt wiped and what they're saying. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's what this whole thing. That's why my visits got put back to 2-hour supervised last fall while the report was being investigated. The investigation found unable to determine. So but yet, and then they said, well, the investigator said that I was reason to believe I had emotionally abused my child, which the case is emotionally abusing my child, not me. Okay. Right. I love how they try to pass that off on everything on you. So then everything he's done, if he didn't want to go to visitation, that was a sign of his trauma and all this stuff. Right. But thing is when he's at visitation, there is no signs of trauma. The parenting coach is totally on my side. I got an awesome parenting coach. She is not down with the socioeconomic stuff. You know what I mean? she's like, look, I was born a poor black girl and I made something of myself, you know? So, you know, it doesn't mean anything. Family, rich, money. And that's the other thing. They think that money and religion make the better parents, you know? And that's why Casa hates me. They don't like me at all. I think they're personally prejudiced against a medical condition I have. Plus, they don't just like me. I was honest with them when they asked me, "You ever plan on using marijuana again?" I said, "When I legally can." I didn't say anything wrong with that answer.
Hey, is marijuana legal in Texas?
No, we got CBD with a small amount, right? Dude, I can't even do CBD. They test me for 20 plus substances, and I have never been positive for anything other than THC. That was it, and CBD, THC.
In California, medical as well as recreational marijuana is legal.
Oh, I know. I used to do work up in NorCal. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to say it was me, but somebody was on a farm in NorCal that got raided, and they took everybody to the jail because they were trying to blackmail the owner into saying that his buddy was his partner or whatever, right? So they took everybody, including the mother of the child.
Hold on a second. Miss G, you seemed like you wanted to share something with us.
You have to turn on your mic first.
Hey, Brian, thanks.
That's why we call it pulling a Miss G.
Brian, this is the first time you've been on the show, and you knew that.
Right.
You knew that. You got to unmute yourself.
I went through a season of Zoom trials. Trust me, I understand.
That's because Brian knows me now. Me and him talked for a while, right, Brian?
Miss G only does this show every day, but okay. So
I'm getting old, Brian. It's called old age. That's what it is.
You're being sabotaged. I understand.
It's some CPS worker.
I'm gonna pretend that. See, Cassandra, do you see what he does? Do you see that? Everybody, everyone.
That's pretty low.
Isn't it, Brian? Thank you.
Well, I think you should answer the comment on the screen.
Oh.
Thank you, Gina. I love you too. I've been really busy. Mr. Davis is keeping me. Really busy.
Blame it on Mr. Davis.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, team up. Team up on me.
I was joking.
I got Brian.
That's right. I got you back.
So why don't you answer that question? I think that's why that question is up there.
My boss, His Honor, Mr. Davis, keeps me very busy. Very, very busy. But I will do my best. I promise, Gina. I have gotten your text messages. I have gotten Eric's text messages, and I have gotten everybody's text messages. I promise Cassandra and I are going to make it happen soon. Okay? I love you too. I miss you.
Miss Cassandra, did you have anything that you wanted to add to Brian's story and dilemma?
No, not really. I don't, because I can't give you any advice because I'm in the same situation.
Right.
But I feel for you. I really do.
I know. I feel for everybody too, man.
I honestly believe Brian will get benefit. There's a coaching consulting package that Mr. Davis has, and I have gotten a lot of good feedback on that. And in fact, I received a couple of messages today that they actually gotten really good results with that. The only thing is you would have to listen to his advice.
Oh.
And basically what it is more like having your own private attorney in your pocket, which it benefits a lot of people. So that's something you and I can discuss later after the show, and I'll let you know what entails in that package.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I've been really lucky. I started a GoFundMe to try to, because my lawyer suggested that we might want to try to find an appellate attorney, because he's not really an appellate attorney. He's really good at what does, but like I said, he's not an appellate attorney. I'm concerned that my case might not go all the way to the Supreme Court of Texas. I'm not concerned about that as long as I have a lawyer, because actually the Supreme Court of Texas is already on my side. The Supreme Court of Texas has said that the parents have rights as much as the kids do, right? And that taking kids from the home is bad, abusive, and all this stuff. I mean, like I said, their law, they wouldn't even have taken my kid. As a matter of fact, they told me in Austin, it took me 6 months to get transferred from San Antonio to Austin, Bexar County to Travis. They said if it would have happened in Travis, they wouldn't have removed the child. But yet, since they already removed the child, now they're covering their butts for the other agency, even though even though it's not even the same county, they're still covering it, trying to prove that they have a good cause, right? But both my children, luckily, they're in the same home. My boy, he's confused. They let him decide whether he wants to go to visit or not. And I said, that's not even fair to my son, because 3-4-year-olds, they don't know what they want. I said, there's a reason there's a thing called age of consent, because you're not old enough to make those decisions yet. That's why they have such a term, and he changed his mind, but they don't let him do that for school. They don't let him do that for the doctor, nothing else, So, but it's weird. It's so weird. But during visit, he's great. My daughter, never a problem. And I have videos also of me arriving to visits. I did a compilation of, daddy, and all that. I got compilations of him saying, I love you the most in my family. I want to stay with you forever, things like that, And so I'm thinking, that doesn't sound like a kid that's traumatized by me, when he's climbing on my shoulders and everything else, Actually, I'm thinking about changing my name to JYM. GYM, I mean, Jim. Because I'm a jungle Jim.
We're coming towards the end of the show, and what I want to implement something new, Miss G, Miss Cassandra, and that is this. We're streaming live to about 8 social media platforms. If anybody has a question, put your question in the comments. I get to see all the comments from each of the 8 platforms, and I will answer one of 2 of those questions tonight. Georgette, Cassandra, can you see these comments from the different platforms?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't see anything.
There's a new from Gina, says, love you too, Miss G. Can't wait to see your shows again. So if anybody has a comment or a question, please put it in the comment section, in the chat section, and I will try my best to answer that question for you.
I can't.
Miss Cassandra, when are you going to be doing your show?
I'm supposed to do a show tomorrow at 4.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is that solo or with Miss G?
It's supposed to be solo.
Do you guys have a guest lined up?
No, not yet.
Is the producer Grace? You've been what?
I've been doing these shows and interviewing guests and stuff for this show. I haven't even thought about my show.
You've been interviewing guests for this show?
Yeah.
You should be.
Davis, just,
That's Grace's job.
Let's focus on Brian. Thank you very much. I appreciate
She
that.
didn't interview me. What's up with that?
I
Yeah, I
interviewed
didn't.
Oh man, I felt left out.
you. You're not happy that I interviewed you.
Oh no, I'm so happy. Cassandra missed out
Now
actually.
everybody
I
against
lost.
me tonight. Let's
Right,
let's mark that day, October 10th. Okay,
right.
October 10th.
But you know, all the end of that
Well,
story
Brian,
was
but
when.
listen, I wanna bring something to your attention. Actually,
Okay,
we have a client that couldn't afford to hire an attorney, and that man seriously decided to live with his brother and his sister-in-law, and he had a small business, and like literally didn't want to pay anymore a month for that business. He got his twin boys back, and he built his himself up again.
right,
Oftentimes none of us have money just laying around, right? But
right,
sometimes you just have to take the extra step ahead of time. Don't
right.
wait till the last minute, and get yourself ready, because the battle is long and it's not going to happen overnight. You
Telling
know,
him.
All
we
right, hold it, folks. Hold on. Here is Jessica. That's an interesting spelling of Jessica. I live in Oregon. I tried finding the Form 388 petition in Oregon, but I'm told there's not one here. I want my daughter home. I will do whatever to get her home. Okay. We talked about this the other night, Jessica, with Jennifer, Ani. 388 is something that's unique to California. In your state of Oregon, it's called something else. Okay. So if you're looking for 388 in Oregon, you're just wasting your time. What you might want to do is Google or research or talk to your attorney in Oregon and find out what form is used in order to change a court order. All right. So if you want your children home, you can file a motion or a 388 saying, you want the judge to make a decision right now, no matter what's happened in the past, on bringing the kids home right now. I could answer this question more thoroughly, Jessica, if you told me what stage you're at, because even in California, the stages are different. It's not always the same. There's a different evidentiary burden, and sometimes there are different laws that apply at different stages of the case. So keep that in mind. And also keep in mind, and I tell people this all the time, evidence is the most important thing in any particular case. Evidence. Evidence is defined as witnesses that get on the stand under oath, who swear to tell the truth and tell the truth, and documents or pictures or videos that are presented to the judge for the judge to take a look at. Okay, so evidence. Okay, Jessica has gone on and says, please help me. I'm a good mom, have raised wonderful kids. It is true that there is not a form for change in circumstances. Okay, well, I'm sure that there's one in Oregon. You just have to find it, and you have to talk to your attorney. But Jessica, I have good news for you. Since you posted these questions, and it appears to me that you need some further counseling on this issue, what I want you to do is I want you to contact Miss G, and Miss G or Grace, and they'll arrange a free consultation for you. And we can talk about your case in a little bit more detail, Jessica. Okay? All right, folks. That's the end of the show tonight. I want to thank everybody for watching and listening. Thank you, Miss G. Thank you, Miss Cassandra. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you being on the show and sharing
Thank you.
your story with CPS. And Brian, if you ever want to come back, just let us know. And Brian, if you want your own show, if you think you can help other people and other parents, please let Grace and I know, or Miss G know. It's my goal, Brian, to have 24/7, 365 shows about CPS. You know how CNN does the news 24/7? Okay,
Right.
we want that same thing on social media for parents who are having these problems when they can go anytime and get information. Okay, because the bottom line is parents are where they are because they don't have information. And I
Right.
want to solve that problem 24/7, 365. Yes, Miss G, I see you raise.
I have to bring something to everybody's attention. Davis and I received a call today. Um, do you remember? If you guys recall, I said on my show so many times to be careful about the child advocates on social media. This lady explained to me, and Attorney Davis, and in fact, she actually going to hire us. She said that she trusted a group on social media. I don't know if I should mention the name of the group or not. It's two groups. I can't. Mr. Davis said no. However, it's very well known. These people are social workers. So,
I bet I know which one one of them are.
oh, okay, probably you do. Those people, and I've told you this, guys, from the beginning of the year. Those people pretend to have, the eagerness to help you. All they do is get information from you and use it against you. Oftentimes you get people saying, I'm a child advocate, I help people win cases. These people have people to write um, reviews about them saying that they won cases because of them. You can't win cases because of somebody who's not qualified as an attorney to help you in a juvenile dependency case. I'm sorry, this shit is not real. I'm sorry.
Right.
Don't believe it is bullshit. And I've been saying that from day one. I have warned you guys from day one. And thank God Attorney Davis witnessed just a glimpse of all the calls I get that trusted these groups of people. Anyone that have a donation WhatsApp or Cash App, WhatsApp phone number, all that donation to give to them is all, it's a scam.
Right.
I don't give a damn who they are. Okay, it took years and years and years for Attorney Davis to perfect himself to even understand juvenile dependency cases. So I am sorry, a 29-year-old doesn't have it together. Okay, bottom line.
You
So,
know, I just want to follow up because you have mentioned that a lot. And
mhm,
usually when I talk to people, they don't mention that to me. I don't know why they don't.
mhm.
Maybe because I'm a lawyer and, they're going to get some good advice. But it was interesting listening to that caller today. I was kind of surprised. I was
I'm not.
kind of surprised. So I would agree with Georgette. If you are looking for help, find an attorney that's experienced in your area.
Oh wow!
Did you do that to
I,
him?
I
Mrs. G
that was
kicked you
that
off.
was G, Miss G. I know. I'm not saying hire me, but hire a lawyer in your area that is experienced and knowledgeable in these CPS courtrooms because it's different. It's a lot different. And I could go on and on about the stories, but Georgette and I have a client that we've been talking to, and I have explained to his lawyers how to do something, and they keep kind of messing it up because there's always a different exception and this and that, and they don't know. They're very good lawyers, but they're not good lawyers in juvenile dependency cases, and a lot of people don't understand that. But it's like, hey, would you go to a brain surgeon to get open heart surgery to clear up those bypasses? No, right? They're both doctors. They're probably both great surgeons, but one's an expert on the brain and one's an expert on the heart. So keep that in mind when you're picking your attorneys. Miss Georgette, Miss G, I gotta go. I want to thank everyone for watching this evening, and we'll see you guys tomorrow at 7 p.m. Uh, on The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. And hopefully, we'll have more people asking us questions that I can answer. All right.
Brian,
Good night.
I
Good
call
night.
tomorrow. Good
Okay.
night.